This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hello and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. This is Tara and I'm here with my podcasting partner Rebecca. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm excellent, thank you. And yourself?
Good.
Good. Any news to share? Anything you want to chit-chat before we get right into the books?
Yeah, just if anybody's thinking about doing home renovation, don't do it, because all I'm going to say is we just had some work done and now there's a thin layer of dust over every single thing in my entire house. And I, who hate to clean, am having to clean it. So I'm going to be happy and fun today, whatever, because it's a break from all the crap I've had to do. So How about you? What's new with you?
Not much. I did go on a bookish adventure a couple evenings ago. I went and saw one of our favorite authors, Omar El-Akkad, at our Burlington Library here. He did a little talk for his newest book, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This, which Rebecca has read. I haven't, but I have my copy now, and I'm super excited. If you ever get a chance to see him, highly recommend it. He's fantastic. So good in person.
Yeah, I'm so jealous you got to see him and talk to him in person. That would have been so cool. I would have loved that.
Yeah, it was he was there, and the moderator, I guess, the person who was with him was I can't remember his last name. It was Jared. He was the editor for his first two fiction books, Omar's first two books. So it was really nice. They have like a really nice camaraderie, buddy thing going on. So it was really cool to see that they really truly, they know each other and they had a great time talking to each other. But Omar is just such an open, warm person. He just exudes this warmth and humor, and he's a little too self-deprecating, because I just want to like smack him and be like, stop saying that about yourself. But he's amazing.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed. Because he can be really funny, really self-deprecating, to almost to the point where it's like you said, you want to say no. Like he even sometimes will downplay his writing. And let's face it, the world loves his writing, for crying out loud.
Yeah, because he did that that night that I saw him. He was talking about, of course, his new book, the nonfiction book. But he mentioned something like, I don't know if you've read my other two books, and I don't know why you would, so don't worry about it. And it's like, what?
Don't say that. Yeah.
What? But anyways, it was a highlight of my week. I'll be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally, like I said, I'm very, very jealous that you had that experience. Yeah. And someday maybe I'll see him in person. Yeah.
Keep your ears open for him, because he's doing the circuit for this book. So you never know.
Yeah, but nobody really comes here. Or if they do, if they end up, usually they're going to be a few hours away from me, 2 to 3 hours away. And to be honest with you, it's not that I wouldn't do it. It's just that it's also going to be in the evening. And I'm at a point now where I don't drive in unfamiliar places at night.
Yeah, I understand.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the book talk before we get on to our subject, our topic of the day. What are you currently reading?
So I have just finished a couple things, but so now I'm in that thing where you go, what do I want to read next?
Yes.
And I think I'm going to read this book, which you can see, and I will now turn it so I can see the title. It's Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts by Rebecca Hall. And it's actually a graphic novel. So I bought it last year. I'm really looking forward to reading it. So that won't take that long. It's a graphic novel. But the other one is called Stories Left in Stone, Trails and Traces in, I don't know, some city in Spain that I can't pronounce. So I don't know if you know how to pronounce it, but I can't. So
no.
Anyway, it's a nonfiction book, and the author had reached out to me, and there was a mix-up. So I bought the book, and it says here he explores the lives, histories, and artistic legacies of this city. And another one, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So I will, by the time I talk about it after I've read it, I will look up how to pronounce all the names. But I am not good with Spanish names because I can't roll my R's, you know?
Me either. That's why I was always terrible in French class too.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be my name is Rebecca, so when I took Spanish a million years ago in high school and in college, for me to even pronounce my own name it was an embarrassment because
Mm,
I couldn't roll my R's, but
yeah.
anyway. So how about you? What are you reading?
I have 2 books on the go, so a fiction and a nonfiction. My nonfiction, I've already recommended to you because I think you would love it, and it is called Daughter of Daring by
Oh, yeah.
Mallory O'Meara, and it is I'm going to read the little blurb that's right here. The trick riding, train leaping, road racing life of Helen Gibson, Hollywood's first stunt woman. It's so good. So she was making movies in 1910, 1920s, and she started off in the rodeo. She just had a natural ability for riding horses because she did not grow up in them, but she wanted to leave her small town, and I can't remember where that was, but she found an opportunity. This rodeo was like, hey, we're looking for people to learn how to ride a horse. So she left at like 16 or 17, learned how to ride a horse, took part in like a Wild West show that eventually led to doing background stuff for Hollywood films, and became a stunt woman and then an actress. And I'm sorry, the stunts that she did without any padding or harnesses, in high heel boots and skirts, Tom Cruise does not even hold a candle to her. Does not. It's insane. There's little pictures of it. And I remember one morning I was reading it and Mike came down and I'm like, she jumped from a plane onto like a moving train.
Oh my god.
And she wanted to do this stunt. I will just say this so quickly because it's fascinating. I think it also shows just what kind of person she was. She wanted to do this stunt, and the pilot that they found to do it said, "I will carry you over, like you can fly in it, but you cannot jump from my plane." He's like, "I refuse to do that. You cannot do that. We'll just fly over and you guys will have to edit it somehow." So they were like, fine, fine. So he took her up, and once the plane started going and he had her up, she took off her harnesses, the seat belt, and stood up and told him, "I am jumping out of this plane. I'm either jumping out right here and landing on the ground, or you fly me over that moving train so that I can jump." And she's like, "But those are your only 2 options." So he was like, "Fine, I guess I gotta let you jump onto a moving train." And she did it.
Wow.
Like, it's insane.
A fierce woman.
Fierce, fierce.
Dang.
So it's her story, and it's also the story of early Hollywood,
Mhm.
right? Which is also, it's fascinating. And I know you love movies, and how dominated Hollywood films were by women in terms of
Oh.
acting,
Mhm.
screenwriting, and directing. They dominated in all of them,
That's
especially
really
before it became
fascinating.
big money.
Yeah. Yeah, that I didn't necessarily know,
Yeah.
but I do know back in the day, you know, some of the the women actors, they were the draw in Hollywood. So
Yes.
I feel like now it's sort of changed a little bit where over the last, I don't know, since maybe the 60s or 70s, it just feels like, like you said, Tom Cruise, like those big
Yeah.
names, they get the big bank.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that sort of wasn't the way it was in the
No, you're
beginning.
correct. They were the stars of the serials, those short movies that they would put out. So, and Mallory O'Meara, this is her 3rd nonfiction book, so I've read all of them. I love her writing.
That's what I
She's
was going to ask you
Yeah,
because there was another one you read and it's the same author, right? There was
yep,
another
same
Hollywood
author.
one.
She did one on the history of basically drinking, alcohol, and women.
Yeah. Mhm.
And her first one was, I can't remember the name of the actress, but it was a bit called something but the creature of from the
That's what it
Lagoon.
was.
It was the woman who did the makeup for the
Mhm.
creature from the Lagoon originally in Hollywood.
Yep.
I really her very well researched. I love her writing styles and I love her footnotes. It's becoming like a little
Mm.
signature of her writing. She puts in her footnotes,
Mhm.
which her personality really shines, and her opinions, and I love it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
highly recommend it. And my fiction book is It's called Yellow Bark's Spider, a novella by Harmon Burns. So it's a Canadian writer, and this came by the way of River Street Writes of Hala. It's a little short book. It's I'm really enjoying it. It's experimental though. I think I tried reading this one night before I went to bed, and I just couldn't do it. I had to start over. So always need a fresh mind because it's experimental in its writing style. I will tell you, I'm going to read a quick little synopsis on the back because it's also difficult for me to describe it. But it's one of those books that if you are the type of person that really likes to jump in and take apart a book and really deep dive into why this kind of grammar is used or why this, and it's very visceral in terms of all the senses in her writing. It's very good. Like it's a lot for such a small book. But the little synopsis on the back: at 10 years old, Kid is increasingly disturbed by strange spider-infested visions of his next-door neighbor's shed. Pursued by shadowy memories that torment his waking thoughts, Kid falls deeper and deeper into a haunted inner world, retreating from his family and friends. Emerging from this anguish, Kid surfaces into adulthood as she navigates love, sex, addiction, and self-discovery as a trans woman. And then when a family member falls ill, she is forced to return to her hometown and confront her childhood trauma. So, see, a small book, a lot. And a
Yeah.
lot of the story comes through in how she writes it and in the style. Like the first part, it's in, I think, 3 or 4 parts. Part 1, grammar, punctuation and grammar, completely as you would expect it, but no uppercase letters at all. So not even like proper names, not at the beginning of the sentences, no uppercase letters. And then something happens and then we get an uppercase letter for proper name. Like I find that
Yeah.
shit fascinating. Like it's really,
Yeah.
but it's a short book and it's taking me a while only because I need to give it proper time.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating.
Is it is the writing style, is it
Yeah. Writing style, like the narrative is very kind of straightforward,
straightforward?
but
Okay,
there's
yeah.
also like a lot of inner world
Mhm.
on the page. Like, so how Kid feels at that moment as a 10-year-old kind of thing. And then as an adolescent, there's a dream world at times. So you're sometimes getting a dream world that gives a different tone to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds challenge I mean,
Yeah.
not challenging bad, but challenging in a good way, like, it's
Yes.
different and it's kind of,
Yeah.
uh, pushing a little bit, yeah,
Yeah. I'm enjoying the reading experience.
yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on to our topic?
Sure.
Yeah. So today, Rebecca suggested that we look at successful book recommendations that we've both had from other people. So we're going to give you some, and then we're going to share some recommendations that others have given us. And then we have a little task for you at the end, but we'll save that for the end.
I love that, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you start us off? Because you have more than I do.
Yeah, I do, and I, of course, had to put them a little bit in categories, so I have a couple of categories, of course.
Yep. Me too. I actually did. I'm like, oh, I'm going to put in categories because I know where Rebecca's going to.
I love it. So my first category are books that were gifted to me, that
Mm,
somebody gave them to me,
good
which
one.
meant that clearly they were recommending it. So
Yep.
the first one I want to mention is The Undertaking of Billy Buffone by David Giuliano. Yeah. And our friend Colleen, I gave me a copy, and I kind of feel like she gave you a copy too. Do you remember we read it?
Yeah.
But I
I had
feel
a
like,
digital copy. Did I
oh,
purchase
maybe.
it? I think I purchased it
Oh,
maybe.
maybe you did. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So she bought this for me and gave it to me as a gift, which I thought was really lovely because I think it was kind of when we first got to know each other, and all of a sudden, this book popped up, and it was really good. And so this book, I'll just say mention it. It is really definitely worth a read. I really really enjoyed it. It said it's a story about the trauma, immediate and ongoing, personal and collateral, inflicted by Rupert Shirley, who preyed on boys in 26 Mile House, an isolated town in northern Ontario. The suicides, the conspiracy of silence, the secrets, and the damage done to the boys, their friends, and families persist long after the murder of Scouter Shirley.
Mm.
So I don't remember a lot about the story other than when you and I talked about it. I think we kind of buddy read it. I sort of feel like it because we were,
Yeah.
or we read it really close together because we were able to sort of share kind of some of the hidden meanings of things that we read when we were reading it. So I think it's a really wonderful book. And so shout out to Colleen for providing that to me. I would have never found it otherwise.
I agree. That's a great category. I didn't even think of looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like, did we interview the author?
We did.
Trying to,
Yeah.
oh, we did, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for
And I really,
reminding me. So I'll in the show notes I'll put down what the date was of that interview, and for those who maybe aren't aware that when we do interviews with authors, we work really hard not to give spoilers. We like to give enough information to intrigue you and hopefully make you want to read the book, but you can pretty safely listen to it and you won't get any spoilers.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
That's a good one. That's a good one. I didn't think of that one.
thank you. So what's your
Yeah.
first one?
Okay. So my first one, I had difficulty with this because I don't often keep track of where I get recommendations. So I had difficulty coming up with my titles.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So a lot of them are recent ones so that I actually remembered who gave them to me. So
Mhm.
my first one is a recommendation from a friend, and it came when she had lent me one book. Oh, I think she lent me Tom Lake because I knew that I wanted to read that. So she had it. So she lent me that. But in it, she also included this other book, and that was Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. So, which I had heard of, but wasn't really on my radar to read. But because she lent it to me, I felt obligated to read it. I will put it out there. But I end up being I really enjoyed it. One of my favorite reads
Yeah.
towards the end of 2024. Very quickly, it's a family drama centered on the lives of four sisters and William, the man who enters their lives when the eldest sister meets him in their freshman year. Each sister is different, of course, and each goes on to live very different lives, but enmeshed with each other. But even when they are separated, they are never far from each other's thoughts. William is a damaged man who finds love and acceptance in the Padovano, that's the sister's family. Apparently, it's like an homage to Little Women, which I
Mm.
never read. There's my little guilty
Yeah, me either.
confession. Uh, and I say that by way of that you don't have to have read Little Women to enjoy it because I love this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so wait a minute. So that was a book that was loaned to you?
Yes.
All right. So here's
Yeah.
my question for you.
Yes.
How long do you generally hold on to a book that someone loans you to where they get it back? I'm just curious because I don't loan books because I don't have any friends really that read what I read, so I don't loan books, but I'm just curious.
An embarrassingly long time, Rebecca. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially so mostly the people who lend me books are generally my mom and my aunt.
Yeah.
And they don't care how long it takes me to read them because they know I have a lot of books. This friend I don't know if she listens, but if she listens, she knows I love her. But she also doesn't take no for an answer. She just gives me stuff.
I love
And
it.
so even if I didn't want to read it, she's just going to give it to me anyways.
Yeah.
So I think she gave this to me in the fall, this Tom Lake and this book. Oh my God, I think a third book too, actually, that is still sitting on my bookshelf that I have to read. So it's been about 6 months that I'm
Oh,
making my way
okay.
through this, and that's actually pretty good. I've had other books longer, and that's part of the reason why I don't like borrowing books is because it
Mhm.
takes me so long to return them. But I see her several times a week, so I know she knows where I live. She knows she's
Oh,
getting the
yeah.
book back, but
That's funny. I was just curious about that. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, all right. My next book is one that I got toward the end of last year because I got it as a Christmas gift. A
Nice.
Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I got that from my sister's boyfriend, Stuart. Shout out to Stuart because I am so happy that it's like having a reader in the family besides me, because nobody else in my family really reads or was a reader. My mom is, she listens to audiobooks, but we don't talk about books at all. But with Stuart, I get to have those conversations. So anyway, it's basically a story. It's kind of set in the future. It's a robot story and a person who's trying to find their way in life. It is a small little novella. It's fabulous. There's a sequel to it, and I bought it, and Stuart has it as well. So we will be reading it, buddy reading it together, and I really look forward to it. So
Yeah.
anyway, I really, and again, this is a book I never would have picked up on my own, and I absolutely love this book.
Has Stuart read the second book yet himself,
No.
or just
Mm-mm.
you're both waiting for the buddy read? Nice.
Well, it was
Nice.
so funny because I told him as soon as I saw that there was a sequel, I said to him, I said, "Oh, have you read the sequel?" Assuming, because the book's been out for a
Mm,
while, and I said, I assumed he read the sequel, and he's like, "No, I never got around to it." So I thought, okay, so we agreed that we would buddy read it. So
yeah,
I'm really happy about that.
very cool.
And he and my sister are visiting this summer in over Memorial Day weekend. So I thought, oh, maybe that would be a good time. He could
Yeah.
read it on the plane or whatever, and then when we get together, we could chat about it. So I thought
Yeah,
that'd be really fun.
that would be an
Yeah.
in-person book chat. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, my next choice, I'm going with a recommendation from a publicist, of course, River Street Writes, Hala. So I think all of Hala's books that she's recommended pretty much have been winners for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same here.
So I could have chosen any of them, and this is the one that and all of them would have been books that I would not have found out without Hala's recommendation, which is what I
Hmm.
love. And so the one that I've chosen just randomly to go with is Fungal: Foraging in the Urban Forest by Ariel Gordon, a nonfiction book, and it is an essay collection which blends memoir and nature writing, which I love. I didn't realize that I love that combination. And the focus of the book is the author's fascination with mushrooms, whether it be cooking mushrooms, foraging them, harvesting and working at a mushroom farm, or collecting mushroom quiche. I loved this collection. So much fun. So much fun.
I agree. I mean, the books that Halle is publicizing or representing, I'm not sure what
Hmm.
the terminology is, uh, they are just really, really good.
They are
And
good.
again, promoting Canadian authors, small presses. So if you, haven't checked into River Street Writing, it's River Street Writing is the name of her company, but it's River Street Writes, I think, is
Okay.
the handle for Instagram. Again, we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, check it out because everything she promotes, fabulous.
Yeah. And she's also very funny and will
Yeah,
do anything for a funny reel. Like I love her little videos and reels that she does.
exactly.
Yeah,
And she's also a wonderful writer in her own right
she is.
as well, of course.
Yeah.
So, okay, my next category is recommended by authors. So technically, they were either they wrote about it in a book of their own or they blurbed a book. But I have two of them. One of them is my first one is Dearborn by Ghassan Zeineddine, and this was Omar Alakad who recommended it. I think he blurbed the book. And at the time because I love him so much, when I saw that he had blurbed the book, I thought, oh, I've got to check this out. And what I loved about it, it says it examines the diverse range and complexities of the Arab American community in Dearborn, Michigan. In 10 tragicomic stories, he explores themes of identity, generational conflicts, war, trauma, migration, sexuality, queerness, home and belonging, and more. And I'll tell you what, it was, I really, really loved this book. And I learned so much about the community here in Michigan, which we all know about. I mean, it's kind of well known in the sense that it's the highest per capita concentration of Arab Americans in the United States. Could be wider population too. I mean, wider areas too. I can't. It might be like outside of the Middle East or some crazy thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like again, per capita and stuff. So it's a community that has just flourished for so many years, and that's part of what was in the stories is talking about how when they came here, some who long to go home and some who have just completely embraced their lives here, and just that push pull, all the topics that he talks about. He just does it in such a beautiful way, and I absolutely loved this book. So shout out to Omar for that one.
Yep. Omar's getting 2 shout outs this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, my next pick is a recommendation that came from a book award, because often I follow book awards and I will to find new books that I would also not have found otherwise. And this one is Ordinary Notes by Christina Sharp, which was the winner of the 2023 Hillary Weston Writers Trust Prize for Nonfiction. Ordinary Notes is a collection of 248 brief notes ranging from like a few sentences to a page or two that explores the complexity in contemporary Black life. Also, there's photography interspersed throughout, so it was like had a multimedia feel to it at times, which I really liked. If she had visited a place, then she would put her own photos in it. It combines memoir with literary, political, and social criticism. I have never read a book like this, and I loved this book. It was fantastic.
You know, I remember when you read it, but I would not have
Mhm.
remembered at all what it was about, or the format that it was written
Mhm.
in. So I'll have to go back and look at that one
Yeah.
again.
Oh, I think
So
you would enjoy it.
yeah,
Yeah.
does sound really
I think
interesting.
she's American, but she's a professor up here in at York University.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You might have to look at that one.
Yeah.
I'm still on my category for author recommendation, sort of.
Okay.
And so Marcello de Cintio, now of course I cannot remember the book that he wrote.
Oh, he's the taxi book, right?
Nope, it wasn't the taxi one.
Oh,
Oh man, now I can't. It's the other one about Pay No Heed to the Rockets.
yes.
That's it. Yeah. So that was about Palestine. And he mentions the author Hala Alyan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's Salt Houses. And so I read this back in 21.
Mm.
And it just says, on the eve of her daughter Aaliyah's wedding, Salma reads the girl's future in a cup of coffee dregs. She sees an unsettled life for Aliyah and her children. She also sees travel and luck. And it talks about the 6-Day War. And it was just this beautiful family story, generational story that kind of went back and forth in time. And it was just absolutely beautiful. I was writing so many quotes down from that book. I wrote pages of quotes from it. It was just absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
And so, yeah, Marcello interviewed her for his book. And again, this is a book I never would have picked up or even found her without without him mentioning her. I just wouldn't have come across her book, and I loved it.
I love this category, recommendations from authors. What a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of goes along with our new feature, which is our hidden gems, where we
Mhm.
actually are asking authors for their recommendations. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Nice tie in there.
There you go. Yeah. I don't usually remember to tie things together, but there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay, my next one, my fourth one is from my podcast partner. Because it
Woohoo!
seemed like I should have one from you. And it is Cravings. This is the most recent one, I think. Cravings by Garnet Kilberg Cohen, short story collection. We've both raved about this short story collection, and Garnet herself, her ability. She's a genius when it comes to a short story. Rebecca has also interviewed
Mhm.
Garnet and read at least one other of her books. So we are big Garnet fans here. And so I had to include this book that you recommended. You
Yeah.
read it first, and then you raved about it, and I was like, I got to read it.
Yes. And we really want other people to read
Yes.
that book because it is amazing. And I think you even said this on one of our recent podcasts too, about it's really flying under the radar. That
Mhm.
book, that is such an amazing collection of short stories. Every one of them was just fantastic. So
Yeah.
somebody out there that we've talked about it so much, somebody out there better read it and let us know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
I,
saying,
I
right?
did actually, when I finished my copy, I passed it on to a friend because I was
Excellent.
like, yeah, I'm like, read this.
That's
So
awesome.
next
That's
time I see
awesome.
her, I'll have to ask her about it.
All right. Now, my last category is no category. It's just some other books. So, I was at my favorite little independent bookstore, the bookkeeper in Sarnia, and I was talking to the owner, Susan, and I don't know if it was that I just asked for recommendations or we were just chatting, and she recommended 10th of December by George Saunders, and it is a collection of short stories. I'll be honest with you, I read it long so far back that I don't remember it. I just remember when I finished it. I wasn't at that time, and this was in what year was it that I read it? Just it was just 5 years ago. But I wasn't really reading a lot of short stories at that time,
Mhm.
and so when she recommended it, I thought, collection of short stories. Haven't really made much inroads there. I'll read it. I loved it. I just think I probably should go back and read it again because I think it's won awards too, to be honest. It's not like I'm telling anybody something they don't know, but it really was a wonderful collection. And it was one of the things that helped me embrace short stories more to have read that collection and then to start seeking others. That's kind of the thing that the impetus for me to start doing that more.
Nice. Okay, my fifth and final one is a recommendation from a family member, and I chose my youngest son. So he just turned 19, and this would have been a few years ago. So it happened in one summer, and he's a big fan of Neil Shusterman, who writes YA books.
Mhm.
And he read The Unwind Dystology by Neil Shusterman one summer, and he loved it so much, and he loves giving me when he finishes a book, he just brings it in now and puts it on my bookshelf. But he loved this one so much that I kind of picked it up immediately. And that whole summer we read it and we just talked about it, and we will still talk about that book because we both loved that whole series so much. I guess I should tell you what it's about, but it is a YA dystopian novel in which it's heavy. So in which parents can choose to have their children unwound between the ages of 13 and 18. So in this future world, abortion is no longer allowed. And so if people don't want a child and they're forced to have the child, there's also people, they call it storking, that babies are just being left randomly for other people to raise. So that's the issue. And then so people raise these children, but and their own children. It doesn't necessarily have to be ones that came by storking. But if you get to a certain age, and adolescence can be difficult, and if you decide you've had enough with that child, you
I
can
love it.
decide to have them unwound, which is a physical they take the child apart piece by piece physically. The
Wow.
doctors do, and then, like, if pieces are needed by other people or whatever. So that is the whole premise of it. And then a group of teenagers who are slated to be unwound escape, join the resistance, and then the dystology ensues.
Okay, I have to read this.
It's
This sounds
so
fabulous.
good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. We both loved it. I think my mom read it as well. He like passed it on to his grandmother. My oldest Keegan read the first book in the series. I can't tell you how many books because there's several books. I thought like three, two or three, but there's also novellas in between as well, short
Mhm.
novellas. She read the first one, but there's one character in it that she hated. So she did not make it past the first book, but and we will still once a year, she will mention this character and we'll be like, "Oh, you just needed to keep reading. He gets redemption." And she's like, "I hate him."
So what's the title now, is it the series title or the book title that
The
you're
first
mentioning?
book is called Unwind.
Unwind, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the other ones are like Unsouling or something like that, but
Yeah,
yeah, the
I
first
have to
one,
read this.
Unwind by Neil Shusterman. Oh my god, they're so
Ah,
good. They're so good. And there's like a heartbreaking scene in the first book, which I will not tell you, obviously, but that even now I think about and I like get a little
oh,
overwhelmed by it.
yeah.
It's so good.
Okay, I 100% I've got to look that one up. like right away. Okay, that is great. Okay, those are great. I do still have a couple more here to talk about really briefly, but so I also had to have you. I had to include one of
Oh,
your
nice.
recommendations to me because this was such an amazing thing. I've talked about it so many times. I will not bore people with the details, other than to say it's the Nora Watts series by Sheena Kamal. It is this character who it's based in Vancouver. At least the first book is based in Vancouver, and she is a gritty, kind of unlikable character, but I loved her. And everything about that, when you told me about the series, I went and bought them all. I don't remember. I don't think you gave it to me. I think you
I
just told
don't
me about
think
it. But
so. Yeah.
I bought all of them, and I kind of read them boom, 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 because I could not read
Yeah.
about Nora Watts. She is an amazing character. I just wish the series had continued. It didn't, unfortunately, but so that was your recommendation to me, and it's like the best one ever. Like I will never ever ever forget Nora, and I just love her so much. So that was your recommendation to me. The next one I just want to mention really quick. So last year when I did a series of or my one of my goals was to read classic books by women authors. Our friend of the podcast, Jen Book Fiend on Instagram, she recommended The Street by Ann Petry, and that was a book I didn't know about. So it was written in the 1940s, I think, by a Black woman author, and I believe she was the first Black female author to sell 1 million copies or more. And it is set in Harlem. It is about her life with her son and just trying to make some meaning out of her life. And it is amazing. Highly recommend that book. And then the last one I want to mention is another friend of of the podcast, Justine. She recommended Blackwater's Sister by Zen Cho. Did you read that one?
No, I remember you reading it though.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to look it up really quickly because it was a book I was trying to read, like a little bit more like fantasy or
Mhm.
something, I think, and so this one, yeah, I gave it 5 stars, but it says, yeah, it was set in Malaysia, which I love because I don't really like to read about hot places that makes me feel hot, so I don't like that, but it was set in Malaysia, and it just says, "A reluctant medium discovers the ties that bind can unleash a dangerous power in this compelling Malaysian set contemporary fantasy." And I loved it. Like, I still have there's a certain scene that I have in my mind from the book that I just don't think I'll ever lose that. You
Yeah,
know, that's the great
I
magical thing
love
about reading.
that.
Yeah, you'll have like a scene
Mhm.
and you just know how it looks. And then when I think of that book, I think of a couple of scenes now that I'm thinking about it that just never leave you. And that is the power of reading and
Yep.
the power of great recommendations from people who we trust. You know, because I think the thing about recommendations is everybody has them, but they either have to know you sort of have to know what they kind of like to read, so you might have an idea of what they might recommend to you. And also, if they know you and kind of what you might like you and I are always saying like, "Oh, I think you would really like this
Mhm.
book," right? Because there are things I might not recommend, although actually you're pretty wide open about everything. So I mean, I probably could recommend a lot of things to you and you would be like, "Yeah, I'll try it." Whereas with me, I'm a lot pickier. I have a lot of weird things in my head. So you have to be more selective when you recommend. Anyway, so that was it for me.
That was super fun. I love your categories. I can't believe I didn't think of like recommended by authors or gifts. That's really good.
Well, and also I was thinking listen to a lot of podcasts. You get a lot of recommendations that
Yeah.
way. But I was thinking, how would you know which ones recommend, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how would you keep track of that? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I write down the name of the book when I hear one, but I never write down, I'll never include the name of the podcast that it came from or anything.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now we are going to ask something of all of you. You've heard our successful recommendations that we've gotten from others. We want to know if you've read any books based upon listening to us chat about books. So essentially, have we recommended a book to you? If so, what was it and was it successful? or not, even if it wasn't,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's a really good point. I'm trying to think. I don't think anyone's ever I'm trying to think if anyone's ever actually recommended something to me that I just went, "No, I don't like this." I just you know what I mean? That's so
Yeah.
funny. I don't think I've had any situations like that.
I've had like another aunt recommend like 50 Shades of Grey or something, and I was like,
I'm
mm-hmm.
sorry.
And I'm like, I'm not reading that. No shame if you do read it, but I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not I'm not spending my reading time
Yeah.
reading that.
That is hilarious. Yeah, so hopefully out there, some of you have read some things we recommended, and I would really love to know as well because I mean, it's kind of the point of the podcast, right? Is that we're reading things that we want to recommend to others. So I'm really hoping that some of you out there have read some things that we've recommended and that you enjoyed it. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So send us an email, DM on Instagram, leave a comment if you're listening to us on YouTube, and let us know. Okay, and happy reading.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.